Since the beginning of the 119th House of Representatives, they have introduced more than 1,396 pieces of legislation. Hi, my name is Ruth Ann Parker, and today is February 19th, 2025. My goal is to help you know and understand what is happening in the House. I know that no one wants to read hundreds of pages of legislation except for me, so let's jump on in. Today, this episode, I am actually talking a lot about election and voting. So, House Bill 20, House Resolution 20, establishing the Select Committee on Electoral Reform. This was brought to us by a Democrat out of Washington named Marie Perez, and it was sent to the Rules Committee. Whereas, I'm quoting what it says on this one. Whereas approval of Congress is unacceptably low, and this disapproval is in part caused by the structure of Congress and how it is elected. I think we can all agree with that. Whereas Americans are increasingly turning to electoral reform to improve their experience of politics and elections, including by adopting proportional representation, ranked choice voting, open primaries, and various redistricting reform measures. Whereas Article 1, Section 4 of the Constitution of the United States gives Congress the power to enact laws governing the time, place, and manner of elections for senators and members of the House of Representatives. Whereas the law, commonly known as the Uniform Congressional District Act, passed in 1967, requires every state to elect its delegation to the House of Representatives exclusively from single-member districts, and whereas the law commonly known as the Permanent Apportionment Act of 1929 established that the House of Representatives would permanently have 435 representatives, a departure from the earlier practice of adding members after each census to reflect the nation's growing population. I love this act. It's fantastic. So they set a time limit on how long they want this to take. They expect several different methods to be looked at. They say not exactly who should be consulted, but that people from all different thoughts need to be included. People who are for ranked choice voting, people who are for against ranked choice voting, that kind of thing. They want everything to be looked at. They really want to be comprehensive about trying to come up with reforms that will work for our country. House Bill 126, Original Students Voicing Opinions in Today's Elections, or the VOTE Act. This was brought to us from Al Green, who's a Democrat out of Texas. It's got sent to the House Administration Committee. This bill directs the Election Assistance Commission to carry out a pilot program providing funds during fiscal year 2025 to local educational agencies for initiatives that provide 12th graders with voter registration information. So the local educational agencies must consult with their state and local election officials in developing the initiatives. Funds are to be appropriated, but no idea is given how much it'll cost. So essentially, they want to give money to schools who talk to kids about becoming voters and giving them all the information they need and helping them become registered voters. House Bill 156, Securing Our Elections Act of 2025. This was Brian Fitzpatrick, a Republican out of Pennsylvania. And it was sent to the House Administration Committee. So for voting in person, the appropriate state or local election official may not provide a ballot for an election or federal office to an individual who desires to vote in person unless the individual presents an official valid photo identification. You need photo ID to vote in person. If the person doesn't have a photo ID at the time of voting, they may use a provisional ballot, but they have to provide within 3 days the photo ID or an affidavit from the state attesting that the individual does not have a photo ID because of a religious objection to being photographed. So essentially, that covers the Amish, since they don't get their picture taken, they don't believe in it. That would allow the Amish to vote. If the person does not have photo ID at the time of voting, they may use a provisional ballot. Again, I already said that. Okay, so other than voting in person, in order for a ballot to be accepted, one must submit a valid photo ID or the last 4 digits of their social security number and an affidavit from the state attesting that the individual made a reasonable attempt to get an ID. So if they're turning in a ballot any way other than in person on the day of voting. There's an exception for active duty overseas military personnel, so I'm very happy about that. And there's a provision that helps give assistance to people who cannot afford photo identification so that they can vote. Let's see. House Bill 154, Election Day Act. This was brought to us by Brian Fitzpatrick, a Republican out of Pennsylvania, and it went to the Oversight and Government Reform Committee. This would make Election Day a federal holiday. Yes, I am absolutely cool with that. Let's make it a federal holiday, give people the day off, give school the day off. The kids can volunteer at the booth, at the voting precincts. People can make sure they get there to vote. I'm all for it. House Bill 158, Clean Elections Act. It's CLEAN. They absolutely love coming up with these names. It's hysterical. Anyway, this one also came from Brian Fitzpatrick, the Republican out of Pennsylvania. It went to the Judiciary Committee. It is short, concise, and to the point. I absolutely love these kinds of bills. The states need to conduct congressional redistricting using a nonpartisan, independent redistricting commission made up of equal numbers of Republicans and Democrats, and no members can be elected officials. They can no more gerrymander because they want it to go their way. Has to be an equal number of Democrats, an equal number of Republicans, and they cannot already be elected people. House Resolution 23, Proxy Voting for New Parents Resolution. This one's for actual in Congress. So Brittany Peterson, who's a Democrat out of Colorado, and who is, I'm going to say currently pregnant. She might not be. She might actually have had this baby by now. They did introduce this on the 9th of January. It came about because she is extremely pregnant. She can't fly here because she lives in Colorado and she's in her 3rd trimester, and we all know you can't fly in your 3rd trimester of pregnancy. So she wants to be able to vote by proxy. She wants anybody who's had a new child, whose wife has had a new child. So if any of our members have welcomed a new child into their home or is about to welcome them, they want to allow that person to be able to vote by proxy. Let's see. I wish they'd add a provision about adoption in it, because that's also just as important. Mike Johnson says this is unconstitutional. The practice was used during COVID. If someone was sick or someone in their house was sick, they didn't want to go to Congress and give everybody else COVID. Mike Johnson himself used it 40 times, but he finds it unconstitutional. Okay, House Resolution 24. I'm moving on past voting at this point. We're just going to get through a couple. House Resolution 24, expunging the December 18, 2019 impeachment of President Donald J. Trump. Marjorie Taylor Greene, we all know who she is. It is just what it sounds like. House Resolution 25 expunges the January 13th, 21 impeachment of President Donald J. Trump, again, married to Marjorie Taylor Greene. And House Resolution 26, deeming certain conduct of members of Antifa as domestic terrorism and designating Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. My understanding of Antifa was that it wasn't actually like an organization, but I could be wrong. Really understand it. Whereas the extremist organization Antifa is motivated by communism, anarchism, socialism, and violence, and has continuously demonstrated their commitment to lawlessness and criminal behavior. I don't think I need to say any more. We already know what that all means. Okay, things that have already passed. House Bill 28 to amend the Education Amendments of 1972 to provide that for purposes of determining compliance with Title IX of such act in athletics, sex shall be recognized based solely on a person's reproductive biology and genetics at birth. This came to us from Republican out of Florida, Greg Stubbe. It went to the Education and Workforce, and it is exactly what it sounds like. But in that bill, they passed the bill, then they want to do research. The Comptroller General shall carry out a study to determine the meaning of the phrase any other benefit as used in subsection D4 by looking at benefits to women or girls of participating in single-sex sports that would be lost by allowing males to participate. The study shall document adverse psychological, developmental, participatory, and sociological results to girls of allowing males to compete, be members of a sports team, or participants in athletic programs that are designed for girls, including displacement or discouragement from sports participation, deprivation of a roster spot on a team or sport, loss of the opportunity to participate in a practice or competition, loss of a scholarship or scholarship opportunities, loss or displacement of admission to an educational institution, deprivation of the benefit of an environment free of hostility based on sexual assault or harassment, or any other benefits that accompanies participating in the athletics program or activity. Further, the Comptroller General shall submit to the Committee on Education and the Workforce of the House of Representatives and the Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions of the Senate a report that contains the results of such study. So essentially, they're telling them, here's the results we want. Go ahead and study it and find those results. However, they aren't basing any of it on biology, science of any kind, any kind. I know, I'm on my soapbox, but the whole transgender thing is BS. Just let them be. In Ohio, they passed a bill like this in Ohio, and it affected 7 transgender students. 7 in the entire state of Ohio. We are wasting time on bills like this. I hate to tell you, but people who are boys who are dressing like girls, they're not doing it so that they can assault your child in the locker room. They're not. You have no idea what they go through just to be able to be themselves. I'm gonna get down off my high horse now. Thank you very much. Hit like, hit subscribe, share the video. I want to get all this information out to people so everybody knows what's actually happening in our House of Representatives. Thanks. Have a great day.